For centuries, Oak Island in Nova Scotia has been called the most cursed treasure site in the world. Dozens of explorers have dug into its soil, searching for gold, jewels, or ancient relics. Many left empty-handed, some lost their fortunes. Others never left the island alive. But now, Rick Lagina and his team believe they've uncovered something far stranger than piles of coins or a chest of gemstones. What they found hints at a hidden vault, one that could hold secrets powerful enough to rewrite history. It started when the team drilled into a section of the island no one had touched before. At first, the core samples were ordinary dirt, rock, bits of wood. But then the drill struck something unusual: smooth, carved stone, unlike the natural bedrock around it. Even stranger, traces of mercury were found in the soil. Mercury was used in the past not just for mining, but for one very specific purpose: preserving manuscripts. This led the team to a shocking theory. What if Oak Island wasn't designed to guard treasure at all? What if it was built to protect ancient knowledge scrolls, maps, or writings that the world was never meant to see? Excavation continued, and soon the scanners revealed something astonishing: a chamber buried deep below, shaped like a perfect hexagon. Unlike the other tunnels, this chamber seemed deliberate, precise, engineered centuries ago with impossible skill. The deeper they studied, the more bizarre the evidence became. Carved markings on recovered stones matched symbols linked to secret societies in Europe, some even identical to those associated with the Rosicrucians, a group rumored to have hidden esoteric knowledge during the medieval era. Then came the discovery that shook the team most of all. Hidden in one of the flooded tunnels was a fragment of parchment, sealed in wax, still legible after hundreds of years. On it were strange drawing stars, a map of constellations, and what appeared to be a diagram of a massive underground structure. At the bottom was a single phrase, written in Latin: Custodi Veritate, guard the truth. The theory shifted again. Perhaps Oak Island's builders weren't hiding treasure at all. Perhaps they were hiding truths that could shatter religion, politics, and history as we know it. When Rick and Marty stood over the site, the weight of the discovery pressed down on them. If they opened the so-called forbidden vault, they might find scrolls older than the Bible, maps proving ancient civilizations crossed the Atlantic long before Columbus, or documents that could expose secrets powerful groups have spent centuries protecting. And suddenly, the pieces fit together: the strange government interference, the warnings from historians, the centuries of deaths. Maybe the curse wasn't superstition. Maybe it was a warning. Now, as the team prepares to break through, the world holds its breath. Is Oak Island guarding riches, or revelations too dangerous to be unleashed? The Lagina brothers thought they had finally cornered Oak Island's greatest secret. Their drills and scanners confirmed it. A massive, hexagonal chamber lay beneath the swamp, sealed tight for centuries. But as they prepared to dig deeper, something strange began happening. First, the water pump started failing. Not once, but 3 times in a row. Machines that had worked flawlessly all season suddenly broke down without explanation. The crew shrugged it off as bad luck until it kept happening, always near the vault site. Then came the lights. At dusk, several crew members swore they saw faint, flickering glows inside the swamp like lanterns moving beneath the water. No one could explain it. When they checked the area, nothing was there, but the sightings continued night after night. The tension reached its peak when one of the team divers, exploring a flooded tunnel, surfaced in a panic. He said he'd seen something metallic wedged into the stone wall, a plate with engraved writing. When they hauled it up, the crew froze. The plate was corroded, ancient, but the markings were clear: an image of a serpent coiled around a book, and beneath it, a chilling phrase in Latin: Quisquis hoc apparit, ruinam inveniet. Whoever opens this will find ruin. Suddenly, the whispers of a curse no longer seemed like folklore. Still, Rick pressed on. He reminded the team of their mission to uncover the truth, no matter how dangerous, and with the drill finally repaired, they bored deeper toward the vault. At 160 feet down, the bit struck something hollow. The scanner confirmed it: an empty cavity, man-made, lined with smooth walls. They were inside. The vault was real. But just as excitement surged through the camp, an anonymous message arrived at the dig site. No signature, no sender, just 6 words scrawled on a slip of paper: "Stop now, or you'll regret it." Was it a hoax, a rival treasure hunter, or proof that powerful forces were still watching Oak Island closely? Determined to keep its forbidden secret sealed forever, Rick stared at the note in silence. He had devoted his life to Oak Island, And now, after all the struggles, he stood on the edge of unlocking its greatest mystery. But as he looked back toward the swamp, glowing faintly under the moonlight, he couldn't shake the thought, maybe the vault wasn't meant to be open. With the note still heavy in his pocket, Rick ordered the crew to push forward. The threat only made him more certain something important was buried below. The team drilled a narrow shaft into the chamber, dropping a camera through the pipe. As the feed came online, everyone crowded around the monitor. At first, the screen showed only black water and drifting silt. Then, faint outlines began to appear. The chamber was real perfectly hexagonal, its walls reinforced with cut stone. The camera panned slowly, revealing objects scattered across the floor, long shapes stacked like chests, and something wrapped in a material that looked like wax cloth. Then, for a split second, the lens caught something impossible. A faint glimmer of gold, shaped like the corner of a book. The crew erupted in disbelief. Could it be a manuscript, bound in gold, sealed away for centuries? Before they could confirm, the feed cut to static. The camera had gone dead. Frustrated, but undeterred, Rick ordered a larger borehole to be drilled. But the moment the drill pierced the chamber again, the ground trembled. Water surged up through the shaft, blasting mud and debris into the air. The vault had defenses and ancient flood system designed to destroy anyone who tried to break in. As the team scrambled to shut the pumps, one of the geoscientists turned pale. The flooding wasn't just random, it was rising from beneath the vault. Someone, centuries ago, had built this system to drown the chamber in seawater the moment it was breached. It was a trap, but amid the chaos, something extraordinary happened. When the water settled, fragments of material were found in the runoff. Rick picked up a soggy piece, carefully peeling it apart. Inside the layers of mud and clay was a scrap of parchment covered in faded ink. The letters were faint, but one word stood out clearly: Jerusalem. The crew fell silent. If manuscripts from the Holy Land were buried here, it meant Oak Island's mystery stretched far beyond Nova Scotia. But the discovery came at a cost. The vault was collapsing. The chamber might not survive another attempt. And Rick now had to face the most difficult decision of his life. Risk everything to uncover the vault's full contents, or seal it forever and leave its secrets buried. Rick barely slept after holding that parchment scrap. One word, Jerusalem, was enough to send his mind racing. Was Oak Island really a hiding place for sacred manuscripts smuggled across continents? The next morning, before the crew could regroup, a black SUV appeared on the island's causeway. Two men in plain suits stepped out, carrying clipboards. They introduced themselves as heritage inspectors, claiming they needed to review safety protocols, but something about them felt wrong. They didn't ask about machinery, permits, or hazards. Instead, their questions were laser-focused. How deep have you drilled into the vault? Have you recovered any manuscripts? Was the word Jerusalem clearly legible? The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They had never released that last detail to anyone, not even the press. When Rick asked who they were really working for, the men gave a tight smile, handed him a card with nothing but a phone number on it, and left without another word. That night, as the team debated whether to continue, one of the historians shared something chilling. Centuries-old whispers spoke of a network and alliance of churchmen, bankers, and aristocrats who believed ancient knowledge could topple kingdoms. They had buried texts, maps, and relics around the world, in places no one would ever think to look. Some even claimed Oak Island was one of their most protected vaults, and if that was true, then Rick hadn't just disturbed history, he had trespassed into a secret war that had never ended. The next drilling attempt confirmed their fears. As they reached the chamber wall again, the drill seized violently when they pulled the bit up. It was twisted, bent almost in half. Something down there wasn't just stone, it was metal, and not ordinary metal. Testing showed traces of an alloy unknown to any modern database. Suddenly, the parchment seemed like only a small piece of the puzzle. Whatever was inside the vault wasn't just documents. It was something far stranger, something deliberately hidden. Rick stared across the swamp, where the vault slept beneath the dark water. The note, the inspectors, the impossible alloy, they all pointed to one terrifying truth. Oak Island wasn't guarding treasure. It was guarding power. And now, someone else knew he was close to unlocking it. The next morning, the crew awoke to chaos. The pumps were silent, hoses slashed, fuel drained. Overnight, someone had crept into camp and sabotaged the entire operation. At first, suspicion fell on rival treasure hunters. Oak Island had attracted plenty of them over the decades. But when Marty inspected the damage, his stomach turned. Whoever had done this wasn't careless. They knew exactly what to hit, and they left nothing behind. No footprints, no fingerprints, nothing. Almost nothing. Tucked under one of the ruined pumps was a small envelope. Inside was a single piece of parchment, modern, not ancient. On it was a hand-drawn symbol, a serpent coiled around a book, the same symbol they had pulled from the tunnel plate weeks earlier. Rick felt the blood drain from his face. Whoever had carved the warning centuries ago, someone was still carrying that same mark today. The historian with them spoke in a hushed voice. This isn't just sabotage, it's a warning. That symbol, serpent, and book, it was used by a secretive sect of the Rosicrucians. They believed knowledge was sacred, but also dangerous. Dangerous enough to kill for. The crew pressed on, rebuilding the pumps and repairing the damage. But that night, more strange events unfolded. Lights moved across the swamp again, this time brighter, closer, as if lanterns were bobbing just beneath the water. Some of the crew swore they heard faint chanting on the wind, though no one else was around. Then, one of the motion-activated cameras set up at the swamp edge triggered. When they played the footage back, the team froze. At 3:14 a.m., a tall figure in a hooded cloak stood at the water's edge. The camera caught only a glimpse before static consumed the feed. But just before it cut out, the figure raised a hand pointing directly toward the vault site. The next day, Rick and Marty received another anonymous message. No threats this time. Just 3 words, written in red ink. Do not awaken. The brothers faced a choice. Pull back and leave Oak Island's greatest secret sealed forever, or defy the warnings and risk unleashing whatever had been buried for centuries. Rick looked at his brother, his jaw set. We didn't come this far to stop now. And with that, the drilling resumed straight toward the heart of the forbidden vault. The crew worked around the clock, patching machinery and forcing the pumps back to life. Every hour felt like a battle, not just against the mud and seawater, but against something that wanted the vault sealed. Finally, late one night, the drill punched through again. The sound was unmistakable, hollow. They had broken into the chamber. The camera was lowered carefully. This time, the feed held steady. As the lens passed through the shaft, the chamber came into view, vast, geometric, walls glistening with moisture after centuries underwater. Stone shelves jutted from the walls, their contents long eroded, but the camera caught glimmers of metal and fragments of parchment swirling in the water. Then the camera panned left. In the center of the chamber stood a raised stone platform. On top of it lay a sealed container, rectangular, bound in iron bands now corroded but still intact. The shape was unmistakable. It looked like a chest. The crew gasped. After years of searching, here was proof that Oak Island's treasure was real. But just as the excitement peaked, the chamber shifted. The walls trembled. Silt exploded into the water. Alarm screamed as the shaft pressure spiked. The vault was flooding again, faster than ever before. The pumps couldn't keep up. Within seconds, the chamber was swallowed in black. The feed cut. Everyone scrambled, but Rick stood frozen, staring at the blank monitor. He couldn't shake the feeling that the vault had reacted as if the very act of seeing inside had triggered the collapse. That night, Marty confronted him. Rick, we've pushed too far. The warnings, the sabotage, the cloak figure. Maybe this really is a curse. Maybe some secrets aren't meant to be dug up. But Rick's reply was quiet, firm, and final. No, this isn't a curse. It's a defense. And defenses are built for something worth protecting. The next morning, divers prepared for a direct descent into the vault. No more drills, no more cameras. They would enter the chamber themselves. As the first diver descended, the historian handed Rick something, a copy of the parchment they'd found earlier, the one marked with the single word Jerusalem. There's something you need to remember, he whispered. If these manuscripts are what I think they are, then the church, the state, and powerful men across the world would kill to keep them buried. Rick tightened his grip on the parchment. For the first time, he wondered if they opened the forbidden vault, would they be uncovering history or unleashing chaos that could never be undone? The divers suited up in silence, the weight of history pressing on their shoulders heavier than the gear on their backs. Floodlights were lowered into the shaft, casting eerie beams through the swirling water. Rick, standing above, felt his chest tighten as the first diver disappeared into the darkness. Every second ticked like thunder. Then the radio crackled. Touchdown. I'm in the chamber. Static hissed. Then the diver's voice came again, strained, trembling. My God, it's bigger than we thought. The live feed flickered on the monitors. The camera strapped to the diver's helmet revealed the chamber clearly for the first time. The walls weren't just stone, they were crafted. Carvings stretched from floor to ceiling, crosses, circles, geometric spirals, and what looked like inscriptions in a language long forgotten. Some symbols matched those found on ancient Templar ruins in Europe. Others, no one recognized at all. The diver's light swept across the central platform. The chest was there, massive, rectangular, bound with iron that had resisted centuries of decay. Strange markings ran across its surface, glowing faintly as though reacting to the light. "Rick," the diver whispered through the calms, "this isn't just treasure. This looks ceremonial." But before Rick could answer, the feed caught movement. From the far side of the chamber, where the shadows were thickest, something stirred. Not a person, not an intruder. It was the chamber itself. A grinding noise echoed through the water, ancient mechanisms shifting. Dust and silt spiraled upward, filling the diver's light with a ghostly haze. Something's happening down here. Suddenly, the floor beneath the platform began to sink. The chest trembled as though being pulled deeper into the earth. A trap, designed to protect it. The diver swam forward, desperately reaching out, his hand brushing against the chest. For an instant, the feed flared, blinding white light filled the screen. Then silence. The monitors went black. The radio cut. The shaft rumbled with violent tremors, and water surged upward, forcing the crew to scramble back from the edge. Rick's heart pounded. He leaned over the shaft, shouting the diver's name, but the only answer was the sound of rushing water. Marty grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "Rick, it's over. We've lost him. This whole island's collapsing." But Rick refused to look away. His voice cracked as he whispered, almost to himself, "No." He touched it. He saw it. That means it's real, and in the darkness of the flooded chamber, something ancient, something hidden for centuries had been awakened. Hours passed. The storm raged. The shaft had nearly collapsed. Everyone assumed the diver was gone. The crew sat in silence, grief and disbelief etched across their faces. But then just before dawn the radio crackled. A faint, broken voice whispered through static, "Surface." Pulling up, chaos erupted. The winches screamed as the lift hauled something from the depths. And then, soaked in trembling, the diver broke the surface. His helmet was cracked, his eyes wide with terror. He collapsed onto the platform, gasping. Rick rushed to his side. "What happened down there? What did you see?" The diver's hand shook as he gripped Rick's sleeve. His voice was hoarse, broken. "I touched it. The chest. And then, I saw things. Not with my eyes, inside my head. Visions. Cities burning. Armies marching under a red cross. Ships crossing oceans before their time. And a light. Blinding. Like fire, but alive." He choked, coughing up seawater. "It's not gold, Rick. It's knowledge. Something they wanted hidden. Something dangerous." The crew stared in stunned silence. Rick's heart raced. He knew the diver wasn't imagining it. Too many legends had whispered about artifacts that carried power that wasn't meant for human hands. Before anyone could ask more, the diver convulsed, clutching his head. He screamed, his voice echoing across the island. "They're coming for it. They know it's been touched." And then, as suddenly as it began, he went limp. His body stilled. His breathing slowed. He lived but barely. Marty pulled Rick aside. His face was pale. "Rick, we have to stop. Whatever's down there is not meant to be found. Look at him. If we push further, we won't just lose our crew. We'll unleash something we can't control." But Rick's eyes burned with determination. "No, this proves it's real. And if they are coming, we have to reach it before they do." At that moment, the historian returned with more translated text from the parchment. His hands shook as he read aloud, "He who opens the Ark Chamber shall awaken the guardians of the covenant, and the world shall tremble at what is revealed." Silence fell. The wind howled, and in the distance, across the dark waters surrounding Oak Island, lights appeared, boats approaching. Too many to count. Rick realized with dread the secret was no longer theirs alone. The crew gathered at the shoreline, flashlights cutting across the fog. The low hum of engines carried through the night, growing louder with every passing second. The crew gathered at the shoreline, flashlights cutting across the fog. The low hum of engines carried through the night, growing louder with every passing second. The crew gathered at the shoreline, flashlights cutting across the fog. The low hum of engines carried through the night, growing louder with every passing second. Marty muttered under his breath, "Those aren't fishermen." The boats approached in silence. Their navigation lights dimmed, sleek, Black holes slid across the water, military grade, not civilian. When the first boat reached the dock, figures in dark uniforms stepped off. Their faces were shadowed, but their movements were precise, deliberate. Rick stepped forward. "Who are you?" "This is private land." One of the men raised a gloved hand. His voice was calm, but cold. "You've been digging where you shouldn't. The site is now under international protection. From this point on, your team is finished." Behind him, more men carried equipment, sealed crates, heavy cases, and strange scanning devices that hummed as they powered on. They moved with a chilling efficiency, as if they already knew exactly where the chamber was. Marty clenched his fists. "International protection? Don't give me that. Who sent you?" "The government." "The church?" "Who?" No answer. Only silence. Then Rick noticed something. On the uniforms, stitched into the fabric where insignias should be, was a small red cross, the same design carved into the chamber walls. His stomach dropped. These weren't government men. They were something else. The historian whispered in horror, "They're descendants of the Templars." As the intruders moved inland, Rick blocked their path. His voice was steady, but his heart pounded. "You can't just take it. That chest, it belongs to history. The world deserves to know." The leader leaned in close, his eyes cold steel. "The world isn't ready, and if you stand in our way, neither you nor your team will leave this island." The crew tensed. The night was filled with the sound of waves crashing, engines idling, and the unspoken threat of violence. For the first time, Rick realized the true danger. It wasn't just the traps, or the flood tunnels, or even the so-called curse. It was the living guardians, men who had sworn, generation after generation, to protect the Ark Chamber at any cost. And now, Rick, Lagina, and his team stood directly in their path. The strangers fanned out across the shoreline, forming a wall of black uniforms and cold stares. The mist swirled behind them, hiding the boats like shadows waiting to swallow anyone who resisted. Rick raised his hands not in surrender, but in calm defiance. "You've kept this buried for centuries. If the Ark Chamber was meant to stay hidden forever, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be afraid of what we found." The leader's jaw tightened. "You've uncovered what was never yours. That ends tonight." One of the guards stepped forward, aiming a device at the crew's gear. A pulse of static burst, and every piece of electronic equipment on the dock went dark. Radios, monitors, even the generator sputtered out. The island was plunged into silence, broken only by the crash of waves. Marty hissed through his teeth. "They've killed our comms. We're blind." Rick leaned close to him, whispering so only he could hear. "Then we make them think we're beaten, while they focus on us. The chamber stays ours." As the guards advanced, the historian suddenly slipped a folded map into Rick's hand. It showed an older, half-forgotten access tunnel, one the intruders likely didn't know about. A back way into the chamber. Rick's eyes burned with resolve. He raised his voice, playing the part. "All right, you win. We'll shut down the dig, but give us till morning to pack up and leave." The leader studied him for a long, tense moment. Finally, he nodded once. "Dawn, and if you're still here, you'll be removed permanently." The strangers retreated toward their boats, leaving guards posted along the shoreline. The message was clear. Any attempt to leave or return to the chamber would be noticed. Back at their camp, the crew huddled in the flickering light of lanterns. Fear gripped some, anger burned in others, but Rick's voice cut through. "They think they've trapped us, but this island has more than one way in. Tonight, we use the old shaft. We reach the chamber first before they take it for themselves." Marty stared at him, torn between reason and loyalty. "Rick, this is insane. If they catch us, we're dead men." Rick looked at his brother, steady and unflinching. "If the Ark Chamber really holds what we think it does, then dying for the truth is better than living in their shadow." The crew exchanged glances. Some nodded, some hesitated, but one by one, they agreed. The plan was set. Under the cover of night, while the Templar descendants watched the shoreline, Rick, Lagina, and his team would slip into the forgotten tunnels, and by dawn, they would stand inside the Ark Chamber again. The night was heavy with fog, muffling every sound. Lanterns were dimmed, flashlights wrapped in cloth to keep their beams narrow. The crew moved like shadows, carrying only the tools they needed most. Every step felt stolen, every breath too loud. The historian led the way, map clutched tight in his hand. The old shaft should be less than 200 yards inland. If the map is accurate, it connects to the main chamber, but no one has touched it in centuries. Branches cracked underfoot, the swampy ground sucking at their boots. Behind them, Faint lights from the shoreline glowed where the Templar descendants kept watch. Any mistake, any noise, and the illusion of surrender would be shattered. Finally, they reached it. The entrance was hidden beneath layers of brush and rotting planks. Clearing it away revealed a dark opening, framed by ancient stone. Cold air drifted out, damp and metallic, carrying the scent of earth untouched for generations. Marty muttered, "Looks like a grave." Rick answered quietly, "Maybe it is. But it's also our only chance." One by one, they descended. The passage was narrow, walls slick with moisture, the silence broken only by dripping water. The deeper they went,